I'm making red pepper and tomato soup. It smells wonderful, and it has these homemade garlicky, cheesy croutons. Let's get started, and I'll show you how to make it. I'm going to start off heating 2 tablespoons of butter in a large saucepan or a large soup pan over low heat, and then I'm going to chop some vegetables. I have 2 red peppers and 1 medium-sized onion. I'm going to chop these. I've already rinsed them off, and I won't make you watch the whole thing, but I want you to see how I'm cutting the onion for those of you who are new to cooking. And just think that this is going to be a soup, so you want the anyway, let me see what I'm doing here. I don't like it when the paper takes too long to peel off. Okay, there's one. Think about it being soup. So you want the pieces of onion to be not too small, but you don't want them to be so large that they're going to have a hard time fitting on a soup spoon. So I'm going to do it like that, and because this is not next to my stove, I'm going to put the chopped onion into a bowl. Good. I'm actually going to put the onion in first into the pot, and then I'll chop up the red pepper. I'll show you chopping one pepper. I won't make you watch both. So I like to cut out the stem first and pull out some of these seeds so that I don't get seeds all over. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so I pull out all these seeds because otherwise they get all over, and then I like to rinse it out to get as many of these loose seeds to come out as possible. All right, shake it out over the sink. Now I'm going to cut it in half, and you don't want all these little things. Actually, after the seeds are gone, my little dog likes these. So what I'm going to do is trim this. Again, think of it as what size do you want in your soup. So, and I don't like these white things, so what I do is I cut one in half. I trim off the white part. I set that aside. I actually give that to my dog. And I'm going to trim these in pieces that are about this big. So what is that? A ½ inch maybe? Trim off some of that white. So I'm going to trim the entire red pepper and then the second one, like I'm doing here. And I'm going to put them into a bowl so that I can take them over to the stove. So you get the idea? And then I'm going to pause the video so that you don't have to watch me chop 2 whole red peppers. The onions have been cooking in here for a little bit, and that's okay in the butter. The important thing is to make sure that they're all covered in the butter. So now I'm going to add the red pepper and stir it up. And we're going to let that saute for, I'm going to tell you, on a medium-high heat, so check your heat level. And we're going to saute it over medium-high for 10 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for 10, and we're going to chop a couple other things in the meantime. Next, I'm going to mince 2 cloves of garlic. I have a 3rd clove over here for later. But what I'm going to do, I also have a mincer, but it's going to make them too small. So I'm going to make them really small here. Shooting pieces of, and I'm just going to make them, cut them lengthwise, cut them crosswise. There's another piece. And then I'm just going to put them in this little This little dish here is called a custard cup. Pyrex makes them. They're cheap and I like them. I remember using them in junior high in home ec. Alright, so that's ready to go. And I'm going to show you a couple other things that I have ready to go as well. After the 10 minutes are up, the other thing I'm going to put in is 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Now, cans of tomato paste are small, but they have a lot more than 2 tablespoons. So what I do is, way in advance, I cut up squares of plastic wrap, and I measure out 1 level tablespoon of tomato paste and put 1 tablespoon on each plastic wrap. Then I wind them up and I put them into a Ziploc freezer bag and throw them in the freezer. So now I pulled 2 of them out earlier and they've been defrosting, and I just wanted to show you that real quick. The other ingredient we're going to put in here is 1 large can of whole tomatoes. So this is a 28 ounce can. And while the red pepper and onion are cooking, I'm going to just open up the can and have it ready to put into the pot pretty soon. Not right away, but every couple minutes or so during that 10 minutes that these are cooking, just give them a stir. Now the 10 minutes are up, and I'm going to put in that minced garlic that I chopped up before, and the 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And I'm going to expertly get off my plastic wrap here. Lovely. And, alright, here's number 2. These would be easier to take them out of here when they're still frozen. They've been sitting on the kitchen counter for a little while. Alright, let's use this spoon. And then the third ingredient I'm going to put in here is 1 teaspoon of paprika. And then I need to stir it constantly for 1 minute. So I'm actually going to set the timer above for a minute. The thing about minced garlic is that it burns easily. So if I used my mincer, that would have been fine because I'm stirring constantly. And I'm not going to make you watch the whole minute. My minute is up, so now I'm ready for the next ingredient. So I'm going to put in, I have some vegetable stock here. It's between 1.5 cups and 2 cups. And I'm also going to put in that can of whole tomatoes. And then in here, I have a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then optionally I have 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you don't want to do sugar, that's fine. So now what we're going to do is use, this is the back of a spoon, sure. Use the back of a spoon to crush the tomatoes. It might take, you might want to do it while it's cooking. Because what we're going to do now is increase the heat to a higher temperature, and we're going to bring this to a boil. But we want to get all of these tomatoes. And now that I think about it, before I did this, I could have poured all of the tomatoes from the can into a large bowl, and I could have broken them apart with my hands while the red peppers were doing their thing. So you see, it's a little hard to crush them. And okay, so I'm reading this from another recipe. And sometimes other people's instructions just don't work for me. So that, I would say, if you want to make it easier on yourself, when the red peppers are cooking, pour the can of whole tomatoes into a large bowl, much larger than the can, and roll up your sleeves and break apart the tomatoes with your hands. into pieces that would be okay for soup. You know, see, it's just hard to crush them. They have stems, like any tomatoes would. So, anyway, I'm not going to make you watch this, but I'm going to pause the video and bring it back when the soup is boiling. The soup has now come to a boil, so I'm going to turn down the heat to low, and I'm going to let it simmer. And let's see if it's going to simmer. Sometimes I put a lid on it, which kind of helps it simmer better, which I think I'll do. And I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to get some basil ready. So I only have so much fresh basil on me here, and I've already been washing it up. And it calls for 1/3 cup of chopped, so I don't know that I'm going to have that much. But what I'm going to do is pile some of these up and do what's called chiffonade. So I'm rolling them up longwise, and I'm trimming them small like this. And then I'll also trim them this way, get little pieces, okay, and then I'll do the same with these other two piles. And then turn them. And then with the third one. Rolling them up longwise, or long ways or longwise. Turning them, trimming them, and trimming them even more. And so now that's ready to put in the soup after the 15 minutes are up. The 15 minutes are up, and it was simmering nicely when the timer went off. So now you have something, an ingredient I'm not adding that is optional, and that's 1/3 cup of cream. I have almond milk in the house, but it's vanilla almond milk. If it was plain, I might try it. So you could add milk or cream. And then I have the chopped basil that I had chopped earlier. And I'm going to stir this in. And now it's ready to serve. And I'm also going to make these grilled cheese croutons. To make the grilled cheese croutons, I'm going to take a piece of sourdough bread here, and then I have a piece of garlic that I've cut in half, and I'm just going to rub it to get some garlic flavor on the bread, and I'm just doing one piece here, one piece of bread. You can do a lot more breads. And then I'm going to put a little bit of white cheddar that I've shredded. Not a lot. And I'm going to broil it in the broiler next. So I have the broiler on, or the oven rack at the highest setting, but I'm going to keep a light on because I'm going to watch this for 2 minutes. But I want the cheese to get melty and slightly golden on top, but starting to get brown, but not very brown. So that's what I'm going to do. Shutting the door, watching through the window. Well, it sure isn't going to take 2 minutes. I didn't even think I needed to close the door. And I don't want the bread to get too dark, so I'm going to pull it out now, and I'm going to let it cool for a minute. All right, it's been a minute, and it's cooling. In retrospect, I think the way I would have done this is I would have toasted the bread first, because now I've got a side of the bread that's not toasted. But that's just me. So you can cut it any which way you want. You can cut little triangle things. And the idea is that you put them into the soup. One or, like 2 or 3 of these grilled cheese croutons in tomato soup. So we'll do that. next, if you can keep yourself from eating one of them, like this one. I think I want to eat it. So this is how the soup looks after you plate it up in a bowl and put in the garlicky, cheesy croutons.